Everyone that like knows me now, like they're like, first time I ever met you, I always thought you were like a standoffish like dick, and I'm like, what?
I thought that
You two are both Gemini risings.
I wonder what mine is. Is that what it like?
You're both Gemini.
Like, okay. Right,
oh,
cool.
so wait. So the Gemini rising, the ascending, that's like the first.
Those are the same thing. Yes.
Yeah.
You're both seen as Gemini, which, yes, it can come across with that two-faced thing at times. But you want to see both sides of a story, which is why that's what makes you both great podcasters. You're here to get both sides of the story. You're interested in duality. You know, they're the very social, very childlike. They're the fun. They're really the fun sign. They to me, my Venus is in Gemini, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm a child.
Yeah.
Yo, I was about to say me too, Brian. Yo, good to meet you, Brian. Yeah, but. Listen, welcome everybody to this More Than Black or White Health Podcast. We are your boys, Brian and Paul. Bless up to you and everybody that's coming here. Thank you to all the subscribers. We appreciate you. If you're new to this podcast, you're new to us, welcome. This podcast is about helping you be an advocate for your health and well-being. If you want to get off the meds, if you want to get off the usual protocol, this is the podcast to start watching because there's a lot of things that can contribute to your health and well-being. My name is Paul. I'm one of your co-hosts. I'm an author, facilitator. I'm a shaman and all that good stuff. And I'm a co-host to my guy, Brian. Brian, who you with, man? Who you with?
Oh, Brian, co-host to my boy, Paul, entrepreneur, investor, world traveler, and a student of the universe. That's all I got, man.
And so it is. So, hey, check this out, party people, right? So I'm into what I tell Brian is the moon, stars, and quasars. All right. So ever since I got into yoga, I started really getting into the chakra systems, frequency, vibrations. And that's one of the areas actually where Brian and I have one of the many areas where Brian and I align. We've talked about the frequencies. We've talked about a lot of the neuroplasticity, metaphysics, a lot of different things. And today is going to be an episode. We're bringing in a friend of mine, which was one of my former podcast co-hosts back in the day, talented, authentic soul and being. And she's going to give us insight on how things like what's called a human design, astrology. So if anyone's ever said, what's your sign? And you're like, I have no idea what the hell that has to do with me ordering a Big Mac. So it's like, if you ever had all those kind of questions, this is the podcast for you because we're going to break down a lot of these different terms you may hear out in there, and also break down the importance and relevance in regards to your overall well-being, your place in the world, validating who you are on the path that you're on. So any thoughts on this, bro? Because I'm curious.
Oh man, my thoughts are going all over the place. I remember when I first got into astrology, it was interesting because I was like, I read something and I was like, 'cause I'm Pisces, March, and that's usually the last of the signs, right? It's a number, It's a 12 number sign. So I was like, why is it March, third month, but it's the last sign? Well, apparently back in I think, don't quote me on this, but I think it was like the 15th century. April actually used to be the start of the new year. And so the king at the time, I forgot what country, I want to say it was like England, France, or Spain or something like that. They wanted to make it January as the start of the new year, but a lot of people were going against it. So that's how April Fools came up. So anybody that didn't want to celebrate on April or still celebrate on April, he's like, oh, you're a fool. And that's how the whole calendar kind of got started. That's my fun fact of how April Fools was built around. But anyway, I really got into it, more I got into it, I was like, wow, this has a lot to do with me. And my sun sign. I started getting the numerology. That was fascinating. A lot of people are like, numerology, it's all like BS. But if you really dig into it, it's pretty fascinating stuff. So I'm just an open individual. I'm very curious, and I like to hear all sides of it. So I'm excited to hear what Kelly has to say today.
Brother, me too. And I'm also excited that like I didn't know you were a numerology dude too, because you got 3 and 6 in your birthday, and you also got the 9 at the end, 369. Bless up to our guy, Nicole Tesla. Who you with? All right, so listen, without any further ado, man, because B and I will go in. We are bringing in. Do we have some music? Oh, who you with? Yeah, buddy. Oh, Kelly Drury, who you with?
With you. With
Yeah,
you.
that's
With
right.
you too. Hopefully
Welcome
everything
to-
stays unfrozen. Hopefully I don't freeze again. I keep freezing a little bit. So hopefully let me know if anything happens.
We've had plenty of technical difficulties on the show.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay.
Yes, you've heard me singing, so you know that's one of them. But listen, we're gonna hook it up. Everything is great. Hey, listen, Kelly, thank you so much for taking the time and the opportunity to be here and to share your wisdom and insight, because I think this is a topic, like Brian was saying, like a lot of, there's a lot of different facets to this that probably people dabbled in but never really connected the dots together. So we got some questions we're gonna ask you, but before we get into it, like talk to the peoples, like share, Kelly, who are you? Who are you?
Good question. I feel like that's the question of my life. Who am I? Well, it's an evolving person, and as we all are. And I think that's actually what's brought me to where I am today. And, why astrology, it's been a part of my life for as long as I can remember. As Paul knows, we're kindred spirits in healing. I've had a background in the healing arts probably 25, I'm embarrassed to say 25, 30 years now. I don't even know how that's possible. But basically, started doing yoga, I think in the late 90s. And that brought me into doing health counseling. And I was a health coach for a number of years. I went back to school to become an acupuncturist. And then I ran a practice up until a couple of years ago. And as far as astrology goes, it's been a part of my life also since college. Like I've been trying to learn about it, or at the time I went to Rutgers University. And so it was like checking in the newspaper for my horoscope. Like that was the extent of it. But I probably in 2005 or 6 had a mentor, an astrologer who I would call on a regular basis. And it was always gibberish, to be honest, to me. Like she wasn't showing me anything. She was just giving me a reading over the phone. And she would be like, it would be really good, Kelly, if you could learn a little astrology for yourself. And I'm like, this is like another language. And it's just when you see a chart, it just looks like googly gosh, like just little symbols. And it's hard to make sense of it. But she passed away in 2021. And I don't know if it was because I no longer had her to rely on, or if it was that she's channeling through me, but I suddenly was able to start reading charts in a way that felt very grounded and accessible, because I would see I was seeing patterns I wasn't seeing before. So that was really, what started it for me. And I started sort of experimenting with my patients in the treatment room, because they would come in and they would use these keywords, and then those keywords started to mean something to me. As I was like, I bet there's some kind of this going on with this part of their chart, or knowing their age. I would know there's some typical transits that happen around those times that they could be dealing with. And I honestly that's really what I am. I'm an experimental person. So I really used my patient base to experiment and see if it was accurate, because I am very earthy, which means you need to show it to me for me to believe it. I don't just take things at face value. I never understood how Joanne always knew what she knew. I was like, she always seems to be right on, but I would almost get annoyed, to be honest, when I'd have readings from her, because she was also a medium and she had a lot of other gifts. And I would think that like she'd always go back to astrology. And I'm like, can we talk about the other stuff? Because I don't understand this. And now I'm her, like where I just want to talk about this stuff nonstop. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's the quick version.
Yeah, listen, man, you got to put a bio out there, because there's a couple things in there I want to dive into. And for the sake of time, I'm going to focus on a couple things. I got to know, like, what's your sign?
I'm a Taurus sun, a Taurus moon, and a Capricorn rising. So I'm triple Earth.
Okay, we're gonna get into it. Okay, let's get into it because I've been on dates where women have asked me these things and I immediately ran. But that's besides the point. But I'm curious, in all seriousness, right? Like, because I think this plays a lot in what like our culture right now. People are looking at signs. So when I hear you say like a sign and then rising, sun, moon, like talk for somebody that's never like that's heard it but doesn't understand it. What does that mean? What is that?
So essentially you can think of the planets are different parts of us. So the sun is our identity, our ego. It's the big bright solar ball. It's like it's us, it's there wherever it is in our charts. It's illuminating the part of us that wants to illuminate that in our lifetime. There's like three major parts to a chart. There's the houses are telling you the areas of life that something might be taking place in. The planets are the what, the what part of us. And the signs are how we're expressing that. So basically, when you think of, and we use this term, the big three, that's the three I just gave you, the sun, the moon, and the rising sign. And how I usually explain it is, the sun sign is the part of you that most of the people who know you as that sign. If they knew all of the elements or aspects or attributes of a sign, they'd say, "Yep, Paul's a Virgo." Like they would know that part of you. or
so
Kelly's
the sun is
Taurus.
like the center, like your core, like your core state. That's how everybody knows you.
People who know you.
Okay, got it.
Then there's your moon sign, which is more your the internal parts of you. It's like your emotional body, what makes you feel secure. It's the part of us that's a little bit more, protective. It's more attached to the physical body as well. Okay. And our needs, what our needs are. And I always say that this part of us is known by the people we live with, meaning our intimate people. So
all my ex-girlfriends, they'll be like, "Oh, I know that mother."
They all know that part of you, So in your case, that is the Aries part of you.
Yeah.
Those are the people inside your house, your family, the people you grew up with, the people that when you're in the house, that the Paul that shows up inside, they'll recognize that. So that one tends to be more involved with relationships, as you said. Okay. The ascendant sign is when we walk out the door, the people who don't know us. It's our surface layer. It's the part of us that it's actually a very important part of our chart because it was the sign on the horizon when you came into the world. And it determines how your chart actually gets laid out because it ends up representing the first house of your chart, your identity, your surface layer. I shouldn't say identity. It's more like your surface layer, the way that you present yourself. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so I think so. So the ascending is like a rep. Is that right? Like how you show up in the world.
Again, like
I would say it's the surface layer. It's like it's what people are gonna perceive about you when they don't know your sun or your moon. If they haven't been to your house or they haven't worked in your job or they're not a friend of yours, what they're picking up with the way that you present yourself, how you present yourself.
So B, I think that's right. Like what you said. We say
like a first impression?
Yes, first impression is a perfect word. Yep, the first impression you make on people. It has a bigger role in our charts too, because we're sort of growing into that sign over the course of our life. But that's I like to think of those three that way. One is first impressions, people that don't know you. One are the people who are in your daily life who know you pretty well is your sun, and the people who are inside the house is the moon.
That's it. Everyone that like knows me now, like they're like, first time I ever met you, I always thought you were like a standoffish like dick, and I'm like, what?
I thought that
you two are both Gemini risings.
I wonder what mine is. Is that what it like?
You're both Gemini.
Like, really? Okay. Right,
cool. So wait. So the Gemini rising, the ascending, that's like the first.
Those are the same thing. Yes. So you're both seen as Gemini, which it can come across with that two-faced thing at times. But you want to see both sides of a story, which is why that's what makes you both great podcasters. You're here to get both sides of the story. You're interested in duality. They're the very social, very childlike. They're the fun. They're really the fun sign. They to me, my Venus is in Gemini, so I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm a child.
Yeah.
Yo, yeah, I'm about to say me too, Brian. Yo, good to meet you, Brian. Yeah, but
Oh,
listen, Kelly, I think this plays into what we were talking about today, because like from the first time I met Brian, like I just like I remember I just thought he was very serious. And when I got to really meet him, I was just like, I started to understand it's more that he's intentional. So like I don't know if that resonates, Brian, but like he's like a very thoughtful guy, very very cool dude, man. Like once I got to know him, it was just like, man, it was just it's me and B, right?
Yeah.
And I think that's interesting, because when you identify the Gemini rising, I think that there's a lot of things that people like Brian and I have a connection. And I think that when people connect to others and they're like, yo, there's something there. I'm happy that we're talking about this, because I think what you're talking about plays into who we align with, who we connect to, who we favor, who we want to go away from.
Yes.
So I wanted to acknowledge that piece, because that's gonna play a role in more what we talk about. I want to go into something here because some of the things that you work with specifically now, and I know you have a program called Orientation. So we're talking about the astrology, but you also do something about human design. I think there was something like a key code. So can you just tell the audience what are the modalities that you work with, and if you can give us like a summary of what some of them are, that'd be great. Oh, Chuck. Wait, is this the multiverse? Hold up, man. What is going on? We're in the multiverse. Yo, listen, we got this on recording. You see this, right?
Oh, God. Am I back? Okay, I'm back. Okay. I don't know what's happening. I've never had these issues before, so I don't know if it's because it's new. But anyways, all right. You were asking about the other two human technologies, we'll call them. So
yes.
They're called,
Kelly. Wait, Kelly, before you get there, Brian had a really important question that I want us to address before we actually get into
Yeah.
So I did a little experience when, how I got into astrology was I was working with a shaman. We were doing some psychedelics. I was doing DMT and LSD, and the day before he started doing like one of those, like, let me do a reading on you, and I was like, okay, let's do it. And after I gave him all my information, he was like, you're a teacher by heart. You're like, you need to teach. And I was like, really? Like, I love learning, but I never thought about teaching. And once I started, like, I was like, all right, he was very influential. And I started like, let me try this whole teaching thing. And I noticed when I was doing it, like everything in my life started coming together. And it wasn't like, it was just like flowed. It was natural. And it was really good for me. So kind of like my question is like, I mean, I know the answer to it because I had the experience behind it, but like, why should the average person, in your opinion, learn astrology? Is it like not really learn it, but at least get some guidance with it and learn, like maybe learn the basics or have somebody kind of mentor them? For me, it would have been like to get some guidance to kind of put you back on your path. I'm just curious on your.
Yeah. There's exactly, like, I look at the astrology chart as your like soul's blueprint. It said, I wanted to come in at this time, and all the things that happened to get you in, C-section, delayed labor, all those, like, to me, it's all on, it was all divinely planned. Yes. In your case, you have a sun in Pisces, you've got a Mars, and Pisces is the last sign of the Zodiac. It's the sign that it has been through everything. They are generally like our divine teachers. And it was kind of funny when you said that he's serious, because I thought that probably means Saturn has a role with you. And sure enough, your Saturn sits with your North Node, which is your destiny. It's in Virgo. So, it plays that part, because I was like, that, or he's got some Capricorn stuff. But the reason what I have found, I don't use astrology to be predictive. I use astrology to affirm. I believe in free will. I believe in, everybody's evolves. I'm a big, truster of the divine to guide me in my own right way. But we are living in a world where we've been kind of programmed.
Okay, so where we left off, we were chatting it up about the importance of it, and how you were talking, like Brian was sharing how he had that example, and then you were like, okay, you had all these different signs. I got excited because you were like, you got Virgo and something. I was like, Virgo. And then
Right.
you were explaining like, like, um, basically like like you're not about, a predictor. You're using this
Oh,
as
yes,
like
yes. It's
affirming.
really to help affirm people. Number one, it's also to help guide people because I feel that most of us recognize that, the inner child in us maybe has been crushed at some level, or we've had traumas and events in our life that have kept us from being fully self-expressed in our lifetime.
Mm,
And so a lot of times people just need permission. Or to me, I use astrology really as a reflection back to someone just to say, hey, this is where like these different parts of you sit. Does this resonate? And then, as you were starting to allude to, I use these other two systems just as a layering, mainly to show them that each of them is kind of pointing to the same thing. Because like I said, I'm a person who needs to see the proof. Like I kind of need to be convinced sometimes.
yeah.
And so it was through actually starting to see how some of these systems overlap and layer that to show someone else that they'd be like, wow, this thing is saying that thing, this is saying that, and that is saying that. And they all do it in a different way.
Right.
So that's sort of the reason why I do it is really it's an affirmational tool. And I think it gives people permission to stretch into other parts of themselves that maybe they've not done before.
Mm, thank
I
you.
like it. Thank
Yeah.
you. Makes
And
sense.
Brian, thank you for asking that, man, because I know I've heard other people talk about getting readings and they've been more of the predictor. I mean, I've even had some and they've said stuff like I've actually had people say I'm a teacher, educator as well. And
Mhm.
that's one of the other places because Brian and I love to read and research and learn.
Yeah.
So Kelly, now that so especially with what you just said, like how you approach what you do as more of like an affirmation and validation onto like, to connect the dots. Can you start to pull in what are the other modalities that you work with that support you and how you support others?
Yeah. So Gene Keys is one of them, and the other is human design. Both systems are what I would call channeled works. So they were channeled by two individuals. Richard Rudd channeled in Gene Keys, and this guy Ra Aruha, I think is how you say Aruhu is his name. He channeled in human design. Now, I like to think of human design as yang, and I think of Gene Keys as yin. Gene Keys is much more contemplative. It's you're using it to actually sit and work with and contemplate very specific words.
Hmm.
Human design is like a rabbit hole. It is like it's multiple systems wrapped into one. So I don't go into every part of it with everybody because honestly, they'll even tell you when you're learning human design, it takes 7 years just to decondition and understand it. Who's got time for that? Not me. So I take the top level stuff that I feel, or the more accessible stuff, that has to do with like lifestyle and daily habits, but also just if someone just knows their general type in human design. By the way, Brian, you are a very unique type. Like that's only 8% of the population.
Like good
I'm
unique or bad unique?
I'd
Bad
say
unique, you
it's really
hoo-ha.
that's for you to decide. I don't actually believe in good or bad. I just believe in interesting. So, you're as an example. So, there's a group, and let's just talk human design for a moment, and just the broad strokes of it. Essentially, it divides people up into two big groups. One group is the group that's here to work on themselves, and the other group is here to work on the collective. And then there's subgroups within that. So the collective group, I'm over on that side, which is why I started, and it was why it was life-changing to learn that I'm what's called a projector. So I'm literally here to guide people. That's the job of a projector is, and I have to be invited in. I can't force myself into your life and start telling you all the things about yourself. You have to say, hey, can I have a session with you? Or I'm interested in that. I need to be invited in. There's one other group on that side, and they're the rarest type. They're called reflectors. There's only one, they're like 1% of the population of the planet. So that's the collective group. Then everybody else is here to work on themselves. That is manifestors. Brian, you're a manifester, and that's only about 8% of the population. And then Paul makes up a subgroup of the biggest group, which is there's generators. And then there's a subgroup of generators called manifesting generators. And it just has to do with the fact that you have a channel that goes up to the throat, which allows you to actually communicate.
Mm.
What makes manifestors so unique is that they are the only type to inform the rest of us. They are the ones that are here to initiate things and actually bring things into being. And just as an example, Brian, you should be the one initiating everything with everything. It's an annoying aspect, I'll say. But even as far as in the morning, you should be the first to say, good morning. No one should start but you. So just as an example, that's how a manifestor is. They are here. They're the only type that does that. We all want to be quote unquote manifestors in this other, universal law language. But the truth is, from human design, it's only the manifestors that have the ability to bring something into form. The rest of us are responding to you.
Once I started learning, doing visualization work and doing all that type of work, like I manifest things very easily. I've noticed.
Yeah.
When I really started to get into it, like really get into it the last 5 or 6 years, everything that I visualize without any different, anything not happening, it's always happened.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's cool. That's cool to know that. All right. So knowing that's not just luck.
No, it's not. And I say there's sometimes, I think a lot of pressure on manifestors because they
Yeah.
are so unique. And I will say that manifestors are known to be the shortcut takers. Like they don't want to follow the slow way. They're already ahead of everybody.
Yeah.
Other people are like, wait, I wanted to get on your train, but you never stopped. It's like they have that way about them. So a
Yeah.
part of being a manifestor is learning to slow down and informing people where you are at. Like that's how it'll work in a little bit more in a cooperative way with other people. Does
That
that
is
make
true.
sense?
Yeah, I definitely sometimes I'm like, you better get on the bus or it's, take the next ride. Like, come on, let's go. I'm very I do need to slow down. I do need to slow down.
Well,
That's
you don't
good.
At some
need
level.
to. You don't need
Yeah.
to. I mean, you can if you
Well,
want to.
it's healthy for my relationships if I do.
Yes.
Yes, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's exactly it.
So
Now,
Yeah.
Paul's the manifesting generator. He's here to respond. So he's here to respond to people's problems and as a matter of fact, like it's about like listening to how to respond to someone. Whereas I'm actually waiting to be invited, as a projector. So it's kind of cool that all three of us are three different types. It's kind of rare to have that happen all on a call like this. But one of the things that the two of you have in common, the other part of human design that I find is important is what is called your authority. Your authority is what helps you make decisions in life. And I will say that the two of you have an authority that's a little bit more difficult because it's related to the solar plexus, which is related to your emotional center. Like you make decisions from an emotional place. Now, that's hard because my experience with people who have that, they never feel more than 70% sure about their decisions. Like it takes a lot, like the decision making can be hard. But part of what it is they need to wait. They need to like wait on decisions. I always say sleep on it when it comes to people who have solar plexus or emotional authority. You have to, like if I said, hey, I want to invite the two of you to dinner and you both kind of go, ooh, sounds great. Like you feel through the high of that emotion, but then you both get in the car, you go home, you're like, she like ignored me when on the last time she didn't show up, she was late. So then you start feeling sort of this like negative part, and it has to come almost like a sine wave curve. You need to feel through all parts of your emotional system before you'll feel about 70 to 80% sure about a decision.
Hmm.
Mine is a little bit different. It comes from a thing that I hear yes, no, and it's very spontaneous and I have to listen to it. So it's a very different way than the two of you.
That is very interesting. Neither good or bad.
Neither
Just
good or bad.
simply interesting, right? And I think this is what I'm talking about with why I think this is important for people to be able to understand these concepts. And thank you for breaking these down because as you just said, and I can see how that plays into the practice of, hey, once you know what the mode is that you're in, it can help make different decisions, right? So, like for example, when you say like, I forget what you said, like I'm based on the emotion, right? So one of the things that's helped me recently is holding off on like, let me think about it. You know what I mean? Like, let me think about that for a second and let me get back to you. Now that's a practice in itself because I've been in that spot where people are like, hey, you want to do something? I'm like, yeah. And then I'm like, wait, damn, I don't feel like doing shit.
Mhm. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's like the other day, like when Brian was like, hey man, we're gonna go out here. I was like, wait, hold on. No, I can't get there by that time. You know what I mean? Whereas before I'd be like, yeah, I can do it. But I recognize like, so why do I make those outlandish examples? Because I think more people as we go through life, there's more confusion as to who we are.
A
And
lot of
that
expectations on each other.
a lot of expectations, right, Kelly?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like, well, hold up. Like, well, what am I supposed to, what am I supposed to be doing here? Like, and so even when you're talking about how we make decisions, how we show up, even like when you were talking to Brian, like you're a manifester. So your biggest thing is you start first, you start first. A lot of people that may resist to starting first, that could be actually harming them
Right.
because they're not really stepping into who they truly are.
I have harmed myself a lot by doing what a manifestor is supposed to do. I'm supposed to be waiting for the invitation. It has been the biggest thing to learn about myself because I've got a lot to give. I have a lot. That's a projector's a guide. They've got a lot they want to share, but they cannot receive it. It goes right over their head. And literally, well, people will do this with me. So learning this to go, Kelly, it's going to be hard to be quiet, but wait until they invite you in, and then it's permission, and then they're all ears and actually what I have lands. So it's all about finding the right people with me, in that regard. So, but it was
Like,
destroying relationships, I would say. People are like, enough. You're too much. That's what a projector often hears. You're too much.
got it. So,
Mm.
so I'm curious, like especially with now that you're doing this, are you able to share a scenario where you worked with someone
Mhm.
and you help them get clarity on their path? I know confidentiality can't, but like, are you able to share just so people get an understanding of how, we're talking about like, hey, this is this, but
Yeah.
how everything integrates.
Yeah.
Sure.
I would say every single person that's a projector that I have met, it's been life-changing because projectors burn out. They don't have the same energy centers that you two have to rely on. We do not have it. So I've literally been hospitalized twice for burnout. It's very common because why we're all trying to be these machines of getting ahead and getting things done, and projectors are not designed that way. We're really here to help guide for the future. And so we need to be actually resting a lot. Like literally to be in bed and doing work in bed is, not uncalled for a projector, but I know many projectors who are working in the public school system they get sick over and over and over again. This was a big part of my as a medical professional. I had worked in multiple, different, I would say, like I worked in a community clinic and then I worked in a multidisciplinary clinic, and I would just burn out to the point where I couldn't walk. Like, I mean, ridiculous amounts of pain and agony. And so I said, all right, I create my own practice.
Hold on. Broke up again. Dang. Brian, you there, right?
Yeah, I'm there. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Hey,
we
Kelly,
had,
huh?
we had a good run. Oh,
Yeah,
there we
we
go.
had, we had a good run. Ah, Kelly,
That's in.
Kelly, 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 Kelly. That'll be our call to welcome her back. Kelly, Kelly, Kelly. Why?
Out in the ether.
Kelli or Y. That was Kelly. Kelli was my former wife's name. But so while she's coming back in, bro. Oh yeah, she'll be back in. So she just remind me. Oh fuck it, I'll keep this on. I'm gonna use this for the recording. So when I was dealing, because like I had this situation with Kelly. Oh, I like that picture with the hair. Yo,
I am sorry. This has
yo,
to be me. I'm sorry.
yo. I
Ugh,
remember when you got that cut. I was like,
yeah.
ooh, sassy ass.
Growing it out now.
Bless up to you. I was actually getting ready to share with Brian the story about like us working together, the situation with Elijah recently.
Yes.
And yeah, this isn't Paul. So yeah, I mean, I mean, I'm not gonna. I just said his name anyway. But anyway, I think I'm gonna speak on this from a parent-child relationship because, uh, for people that have been regular watchers of the podcast, I have some situations with my children, and I have a teenager right now, and like we don't always have the best relationship. And it's wild because like he was on my mind and I don't know, I reached out to Kelly and I was like, hey, blah 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 and this, that. And she knows my information. So then she gets his and she was like, oh, well, this, and this. And as Kelly was explaining the charts, now there were some things that I was like, wait, what? And I paused. I was like, well, what does that mean? What does that mean?
Right, right.
I'm saying that because like when you work with a professional like Kelly, and we're gonna get, we're gonna share her information. I think it's key for you to understand what like that you can ask questions, pause, like, hey, what does this mean? What does
Yes.
it look like? How does that relate? Because she dropped some gems on me as far as how I can relate to my son.
Hmm.
And a lot of things she said, B, I was like, oh, what?
And
Oh,
I would say that that is also the other place that I have had, it has come in so impactful, especially when a parent has a projector or a manifester as a child,
yeah.
which, and I had a couple of patients who had a projector and a reflector, that 1%.
Oh,
So for them, just learning like that, they were like, oh my gosh, we are so grateful to know this because they're now really young children. But
yeah.
they were like, they are very different. Like they're very, very different. And they're both the parents are manifesting generators.
Mm.
So like that was one of the best examples because they didn't know how to parent the child, and they're like, they're in another world. I'm like, yeah, they're your teachers. You're not their
Yeah,
teachers,
yeah, yeah. And
you
this
know?
is what you were saying about Elijah. I don't think I got his human design, I gotta check on that.
Yeah.
But you were basically saying that, like, listen, he's here to teach your ass too, mother hoo-ha. And I'm
Yes.
like, oh no. But
Yeah.
I think the reason why I bring this up is because there's a lot of different applications to this that when you find a solid pro, though, right? And Kelly, we got a couple more questions before we wrap up. But when
Yep.
you find a solid pro, and I'm not talking about like Miss Cleo, call me for a bomber clock
Yes.
reading. I'm not talking about that shit
No.
with the 997 number.
Mm-mm.
No, when you find a pro like Kelly, and you're bringing them your situations, and then they're entering this information in the chart, and they're asking questions. I think you will definitely be able to get clarity on where you are. So Kelly, I'm curious for you, like in your perspective, what are the ways that these tools tie into the mental, the emotional, and even physical well-being?
Well, yeah, I think part of it is just one understanding yourself. If you've got a fire moon, and I believe one of you do, right? I was saying Aries moon, like that's a restless moon, on the inside, like of you. It's
I'm the Aries moon.
I believe you're an Aries moon. I'm
I
afraid
was
to like check the
yeah,
charts
that's
right now.
right. I am Aries because I remember E and I were on the same.
Yes, you have the
Yeah,
Aries. So,
yeah,
like
yeah.
an
So
Aries moon is like
yeah.
if anyone with a fire moon, it's a very restless kind of moon. It doesn't relax in the same way that an Earth moon or a water moon would. So, just like that, knowing that about your like I'm triple Earth. Like there's a lot of Earth. Like I need to be, I need a little bit more water and air mixed in. So it helps to show people where the balance can occur, like from an elemental perspective with their habits. Like, hey, you have no water in your chart, go to the ocean more often and balance that out. Go to therapy and work. Because I think of the elements like the fire is the spiritual side of us, the air is the mental part of us, the earth is the physical part of us, and the water is the emotional part of us. And so, depending on where things land, because each sign is in an element, it will give us an idea of like, wow, you've got no, X in your chart, balance it out. And I see that, that's another way that we can balance things out with the other systems is looking at, because human design gets really nitty gritty,
Yeah.
down to what environments you thrive in, the way that you digest food. Like it gets very, very specific. What I like about Gene Keys, which I didn't get into basically, is that it's more contemplative. It's more about like contemplating certain words that actually have a meaning to you that coordinate with your 64 genetic expressions. There's it's related to the I Ching, if you know the I Ching.
Yeah. Oh man. So Kelly, yeah, I want to do a session with you because like Brian, I think I was telling you when I did that last medicine journey with the toad. They were like, "Yo, man, we're gonna give you the key codes.
Mm,
We're gonna give you the codes."
yeah.
And I saw like just like hieroglyphs, like
Yeah.
flashing in front of me, lightning, tapping my chest and shit. Like I'm like, "What
Yeah.
the heck is this?" So Kelly, couple more questions.
Yeah.
talk about systems, right? So how can someone approach this
Yeah.
with an open mind without feeling like they're just following some system or some woo-woo type of situation?
Yeah, I think there's a couple ways. I think getting a reading is always great, but I think it does matter to kind of align with someone that feels more like you're kind of like you can hear what they're saying. For
Hmm.
me, I like to actually put someone's chart on the screen and walk them through it. Some people don't want to see that. They just want to be told,
Yeah.
and then I send them, in my case, I send them the recording so they can listen to it over and over again. There's so many apps out there now that people can tap into to find out their general stuff and click around their charts. The main astro.com is what I tend to use. It's very accessible, it's free. You can put your charts in there, and they have, if you go into the free section under, I think it's under personality, there's Astro Click, and you can literally click around your chart and start learning about what each of those placements mean. You can look at what are called aspects, which is the relationship from one planet to another, the houses, like you can kind of click around that. I like another app called The Pattern because it doesn't use any astrology speak, really, very little. And I think that that is helpful for people where this just, again, sounds like gobbledygook. And like it's a way to just start. And I particularly like that one for you can create a bond with somebody
Yes.
else and you can see, like what are the aspects and patterns within the relationship that are going to be a little challenging versus like really exploratory and destined or there's all those aspects to it. I personally work with Placidus. It's in Western astrology a Placidus system, but there's also an app called Chani, and she works with a whole house system. So it just makes a little bit easier to do horoscopes with a whole house system. It basically means your whole house would be Gemini versus for both of you, it's not. It's split between a couple signs. You have maybe a couple signs in there.
Hmm.
But those would be the ones that I would start with. Cafeastrology.com is a wonderful website too to just like read on articles and start learning about, just the basics. It's a great, great website that way.
Mm. Oh man. So okay, I'm gonna make sure that I get a list of those and we put them in the show notes.
Sure.
Now, the last one of the last questions, probably the last question, and aside from like, where how do they get in contact with you? Is look, Kelly, even like for those that are here with us at this point, bless up to you. Thanks for watching.
Hmm.
And I'm curious, like many people see like the astrology, human design, like I was telling Brian, the moon, stars, quasars, all that stuff, right?
Hmm.
So I'm curious how you respond or how you address like that type of skepticism especially with knowing how effective this is.
Well, one, I would never work with anybody who's like if they're super skeptical, I'm like, I'm not here to prove anything to anyone, it's like, it's really an exploration. But I will say that a big part of me is that because I'm so earthy, I tend to attract those skeptics in some ways. So I just tend to not be too woo-woo-y about it. Like I really like try to bring up actual concrete examples when talking to them about it. But I think going to those websites and like actually starting to look for themselves so they can develop their own relationship with it.
Mhm.
I think an experienced reader helps though, because it is a lot of information. You're going to be like, okay, I'm reading this and this and this and this, and it can get someone a little lost.
Right.
Um, but that's how I would say for anybody who's a skeptic, it's really important to, well, one, ask why you're a skeptic. I always say, like with acupuncture, there were so many skeptics about acupuncture, and I'm like, except that it's been around for 2,000, 3,000 years. I don't know anything else that's around that long. Why are we skeptical about that? Astrology is the same. I mean, we know how the moon affects us. We know it affects how the ocean moves. So why would we think that's not going to affect us? So that's the basic way that I would address that question. When people ask, like, how go to an ER on a full moon, go into a classroom on a full moon. You will know it's a full moon. It's kids are crazy. Every teacher I talked to, they would come into my practice and I'm like, yeah, it's a full moon. That's what's going on. The emergency room, crazy amounts of things happen those nights. So that's just the moon. Never mind the rest of the planets.
Damn. Damn.
So as
Big.
far, and then I think you were asking how to reach me. The best way, just because I'm afraid I'm going to freeze out again, is Kelly, is Kelly, Kelly at Kelly Drury. My last name is Drury.com. So Kelly at kellydrury.com if you want to email me. I'm also on Instagram as Kelly A. Drury, and I just started, if you're interested, for newbies, a new account in the last year called In a Cosmic Garden, and it's really meant for people who want to just like learn the archetypes of, okay, what is the 10th house? What does Taurus mean? What is that planet? You know, when a sign changes or a planet changes into a new sign, we only covered the more, you know, the more accessible parts, but that's another great place if you want to learn and connect with me there.
Bless up. B, any thoughts, comments?
Yeah, so I'm gonna be a little selfish here. I'm gonna with Paul as well too. So like I'm a manifester. I was writing notes. A generator generation
He's a manifesting generator.
a manifesting generator. So start with Paul. Like as a manifesting generator, what are like some things that he should focus on in his life that would make a big difference?
I think manifesting generators are what I would call multi-passionate people. They generally are the people who will have many projects going on, and that's something that they should embrace. They can respond to them, and they do better with that. I know. Why are you laughing?
Because that is freaking me. I'm like,
it is. That's how I've always known you. I was like, you got this going on. You got a book
Yeah.
being written. You're teaching classes. You know, you've got like, but that's really a manifesting generator. They do have the ability to use their voice. They have. That's the one thing that's similar to you. That's why what you're doing here is a perfect example of what, you know, those with manifesting qualities in their human design, and to be doing this using your voice quite literally.
So creating new projects, being an entrepreneur and everything like that, right? Okay.
Yes.
Juggling a lot of things at once.
Yes.
Like controlled chaos, right?
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Now, I will say for both of you also what's helpful is to know what we call your not self. So when you are basically, sometimes the easiest way of saying this is sometimes we pick up other people's crap, right? You know, when we walk around in the day, da, da, da. You'll know when you're doing that. In Paul's case, when he's frustrated. In Brian's case, when he's angry. Those are two signatures when that's coming up. That's where you're picking up other people's stuff and you kind of want to stop what you're doing, you know?
Yeah.
Brian is looking for peace. As a manifestor, as a manifesting generator, you're looking for satisfaction.
Yeah. People ask me, like, what's your idea of being successful? I'm like, peace of mind. That's the first thumbs up.
Can't make it up.
Yeah.
Yo,
Okay.
so you said peace. I was like, bro, Brian, I've heard you say that many times, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Many times, bro.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, so what is it?
And you have a little bit of the anger too, only because you got that manifestor quality in yours. But you're, as a generator, you're more, you know, Paul, you're more of it's frustration. But because of that little manifesting piece, like Brian, the anger can come in. Just letting you know. Go ahead anyway. With projectors, it's bitterness. For anybody who's listening, if you're a projector, it's the bitterness is the quality.
Okay. So okay, so we so for Brian, so for him, it's like really anything that's going towards peace. That's his.
He's aiming towards peace. That's what makes him feel like successful in life, is that peace. He's looking to accomplish peace. You know, you're looking to accomplish satisfaction in an experience. I am looking for, as a projector, success. So, you know, having an interaction and knowing when I left that interaction, there was a success that was had. That guidance I gave provided a success.
It's interesting.
In the simplest words.
Yeah.
Booyaka. Wow.
Are you satisfied, Paul?
I'm very satisfied. I'm very satisfied.
Are you peaceful, Brian?
I'm good.
Yes. Hey, so listen, as we wrap up, Kelly, is there any takeaway that you'd like listeners to leave with before we wrap up?
I would just say that we're living through an obvious time where things are crumbling around us, and it is the time to step into our gifts, you know, really. Like in astrology, one of the biggest things that's happened this past year is Pluto went into Aquarius. Aquarius is the humanitarian. Aquarius is about the future. It's using technology, AI, all these different aspects to help us basically create it's the we the people time, you know? But we the people have to own our own gifts. We have to work through our own stuff to allow those gifts to come forward. So whether you're doing any of these systems, these are just ones that have been really helpful for me to guide people with, but identify what that is for yourself, because that's what the world is aching for, is us to bring that forward and us to literally create the new earth that is like awaiting us. It's very easy to be in reaction. It's very easy to look out into the world outside of us and go, it's falling apart. Well, it is. Like any, I mean, rebirth is not a pretty thing. If you ever seen a baby be born, it's not a quiet moment. It's a screaming and yelling and bloody mess. When the United States in and of itself is going through its Pluto return, which is a rebirth, and it's imperative that we realize we all chose to be here for it. So we don't have to feel like victims to it. We should go, why would I have chosen to be here now? Because this is going to be probably one of the most, I mean, just think about us, our age group.
Yeah. Oh no. Can you
We'll
hear
be in
us?
another 40 years.
Wait. Start that over. Just think about us in our age group. Think about the
Our age group, because we were born before the internet was a big part of it didn't exist really. We grew up with the internet, a bit, but where it is now, how we're living. Can you imagine another 40 years from now what our lifetimes will be like? We have such an opportunity, and I think that that's the thing. If I could tell the world, especially as the projector in me, like we have an amazing opportunity ahead of us, and it's for us to let go of what no longer serves and embrace what we have as gifts and give them to each other. And through that creative process, like, we literally project the world into a new space. But as long as we're in reactivity and we're kind of allowing ourselves to be told what is our authority when we're not making ourselves the authority, is when we're going to have a really difficult time. So that's what I hope for people, especially those of you. I mean, you have such a great podcast, which is, I mean, it's about getting beyond certain things and people looking below the surface and at all these other aspects to life. Thank God. Like that. I mean, this is what technology is allowing us to do, even when it breaks down a little, but it really is. I mean, this is an amazing opportunity that you are allowing your wisdom to come forward in this way. We don't know who we're touching and when it's turning the light on for people. So that's my parting words, is step into your greatness. It's really a great opportunity right now.
Step into your greatness. Yes. Look, everybody, thank you, Kelly. Outstanding.
Thanks for having me. It was really, it's so nice to be here. And again, apologies for the glitchy.
Oh, it's all. We'll blame that one on Paul.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah, it's all good. I'll take it. I'm juggling it, man. I'm good.
Well, it would be great to do a follow-up of one of these. If you guys look more into your own stuff, let's do a follow-up and see if you're like, you posed me with the, I'd actually like to know, now that you know this about yourself, let's check back in 5-6 months, see how that's supported you.
I would love that.
I'll probably have a house in somewhere overseas by then. Chilling in a hammock, like with the Pinot Colada.
Hurry up, please, but I'll be doing a lot of traveling though.
You and me both.
Nice. So everybody, thank you for joining us. We're gonna have Kelly's information in the show notes. Listen, like, share, subscribe. If you know someone that's like, I think I'm into this, like, share this video. If you have someone that's just like, I don't know about this, share this video. It's gonna be a great opportunity for them to get a very nice ground layer and start their process into learning more about themselves. Bless up. Yo, hey, listen. We're here again next week.
Can't get rid of it.
Peace. Step into your greatness.